Ask any veteran trucker about California's Grapevine and watch their expression change. That knowing look, maybe a slow shake of the head, tells you everything you need to know before they even speak. This isn't just another hill on Interstate 5. This is the grade that separates rookies from professionals, the 11-mile descent that's humbled more drivers than any other stretch of highway in the West. The numbers alone don't do it justice. Over 2,600 feet of elevation loss, grades that hit 6%, curves that tighten just when you need them straight, but numbers never tell the whole story. What makes the Grapevine legendary isn't just the steepness, it's the way weather can turn on a dime. It's the wind that hits crossways just when you're loaded heavy. It's the fog that rolls in so thick you can't see your own hood. And it's the brake smell that tells you someone ahead just learned a hard lesson. Every freight hauler crossing the West knows this pass by reputation. Dispatch boards mention it by name. Safety meetings use it as the example. Old-timers swap stories about close calls, and new drivers get warned about it before their first California run. The Grapevine doesn't care how good your equipment is or how many miles you've logged. It demands respect every single time. Today we're diving deep into one of America's most challenging mountain passes, a place where gravity, weather, and human judgment collide at 70 miles per hour. This is the story of the Grapevine. So sit back, relax, and follow along as we go beyond the turnpike. Before Interstate 5 carved its path through these mountains, before trucks carried California's economy over this summit, the Grapevine was nothing more than a natural gap in the Tejon Range. Spanish explorers traveling north in the late 1700s were the first Europeans to document this route, and they gave it a name that stuck. Cañada de las Uvas, the Canyon of the Grapes, named for the wild grapevines that still cling to the rocky slopes and canyon walls. The Spanish weren't wrong to notice those vines. They're everywhere up here, twisted and thick, survivors in terrain that doesn't tolerate weakness. That name gradually shortened to what truckers know today, the Grapevine, though the official summit still carries its Spanish name, Tejon Pass, after the Badger's early travelers spotted in these hills. For more than a century, this corridor was nothing but a rough trail. Wagon trains struggled through mud in winter and dust in summer. The grade was brutal, sometimes hitting 18% on the worst sections. Horses strained, axles broke, and progress measured in miles per day, not miles per hour. But it was the only practical route connecting California's Central Valley farmland to the ports and markets of Los Angeles. The U.S. Army recognized the strategic importance early. In 1854, they established Fort Tejon right at the summit, not just to protect travelers, but to guard this vital link in California's transportation network. Even then, people understood this pass would shape the state's future. When automobiles started appearing in the early 1900s, California faced a decision. The wagon road wasn't going to cut it anymore. Something paved, something permanent had to be built. In 1915, the state committed to an ambitious project they called the Ridge Route, and it changed everything. Building the Ridge Route was engineering on a knife's edge. The geology fought them every step. Adobe mud mixed with decomposed granite, soil so unstable it turned to slick grease when wet and powdery dust when dry. Construction crews hauled thousands of tons of crushed rock from nearby quarries just to create a foundation that wouldn't wash away with the first storm. The finished road was 96 miles of pavement with over 600 curves, some so tight drivers had to stop, swing wide, and back up to make the turn. Dead Man's Curve earned its name the hard way. Every season added another wreck to the toll, but for all its dangers, the Ridge Route delivered on its promise. For the first time, freight could move year-round between the valley and the coast. Produce that once spoiled waiting for rail transport now rolled south by truck. The road was rough, slow, and unforgiving, but it worked. Then came the problem nobody anticipated. Technology moved faster than the road could handle. By the 1930s, trucks were bigger, faster, and heavier. The Ridge Route, barely 20 years old, was already obsolete. California needed something better, and they needed it fast. The answer came in the form of U.S. Route 99. the Golden State Highway. Instead of following the ridgetops like the old route, this new alignment cut straight through the canyon floor. 2 lanes of modern pavement, gentler curves, and a grade that, while still steep, didn't require backing up to make turns. For the trucking industry, US 99 arrived at exactly the right moment. Freight was shifting from rail to highway, and California's agricultural boom meant thousands of tons of produce moving south every week. Drivers who'd white-knuckled their way over the ridge route now had a road that felt almost civilized by comparison. Almost. Because US 99 brought its own set of problems, and the biggest one sat right in the middle of the roadway. The suicide lane, they called it, a shared center-passing lane that belonged to whoever got there first. Traffic heading both directions used the same middle lane to pass slower vehicles, and the results were predictable. Head-on collisions became a regular occurrence. The other problem was brakes, or more accurately, the lack of good ones. Brake technology in the 1940s and 50s hadn't kept pace with truck size and weight. A loaded semi heading down the northbound grade had to ride the brakes for miles, building heat until the drums glowed red and the linings started to fade. More than one driver found out too late that their brakes weren't going to hold. At the bottom of the grade sat Grapevine Village, a small collection of gas stations, cafes, and repair shops. It became every driver's stopping point, a place to check the rig, grab a meal, and let everything cool down before tackling the rest of the trip. In September 1949, Grapevine Village learned just how dangerous that grade could be. A truck loaded with engine blocks came down the hill with failed brakes, tore through the Union 76 station, and triggered an explosion that leveled half the town. 2 people died. The village rebuilt, but 5 years later, another runaway truck crashed into the same spot, destroying the rebuilt station and the post office. The message was clear. Even with a better road, the Grapevine remained deadly, and something had to change. By the late 1950s, California was choking on its own success. Freight volume through the Grapevine had tripled, the Golden State Highway, once the pride of the state's road network, couldn't handle the load anymore. The federal interstate system offered a solution, and California jumped at it. Interstate 5 through the Grapevine opened in stages during the 1960s. Wider, straighter, designed for sustained high-speed traffic, it represented everything modern highway engineering could deliver. 4 lanes instead of 2, controlled access instead of roadside businesses, gentler curves and improved sight lines. But here's the thing about the Grapevine. The mountain doesn't care what engineers draw on paper. The descent stayed brutal. Over 2,600 feet of elevation loss in 11 miles, most of it at a steady 6% grade, the longest sustained downhill on the entire Interstate 5 corridor. Modern truck brakes helped. Engine retarders, those compression brakes truckers call Jake brakes, made a huge difference. But physics doesn't negotiate. A loaded truck weighing 80,000 pounds rolling downhill for 11 miles generates an enormous amount of heat. And that heat has to go somewhere. California Highway Patrol knows this better than anyone. They run a permanent commercial vehicle enforcement facility at Lebec, right at the top of the grade. Officers check brake systems, pull over speeders, and respond to accidents around the clock. During one 6-hour enforcement operation, they wrote over 300 citations, 200 of them for speeding alone. The law limits most heavy trucks to 55 miles per hour, but warning signs drop that to 35 on the steepest sections. Runaway truck ramps line the descent, designed to stop an out-of-control rig in seconds using deep gravel beds that literally swallow the wheels. At the summit, sensors measure brake temperature on passing trucks and post warnings on electronic signs before drivers start down. Still, every year brings its share of brake fires, blown tires, and jackknifed trailers. The technology helps, but it doesn't eliminate the risk. And then there's the weather, which might be the Grapevine's most dangerous feature of all. The pass sits where 3 climate zones collide. The Mojave Desert pushes in from the east, bringing heat and dry air. The Central Valley stretches north, creating its own weather patterns. The Pacific Ocean sits 60 miles west, sending cool marine air inland. When these systems meet at the summit, things get unpredictable fast. Temperature swings of 40 degrees in a single day aren't unusual. Morning might start clear and calm, but by afternoon, wind funnels through the canyons like water through a drain, hitting 50 miles per hour and lifting dust off the hillsides until visibility drops to nothing. In winter, the pattern reverses. Cold air settles against the slopes and moisture freezes into black ice, the kind you don't see until you're sliding. Caltrans plows and salts whenever the pass ices over, but closures still happen, backing up traffic for 40 miles in both directions. Fog is another nightmare. It rolls in thick and fast, cutting visibility to feet, not yards. Drivers doing 70 suddenly can't see their own headlights reflecting back, and by the time they hit the brakes, it's too late. Multi-car pileups are a regular occurrence, and every one of them shuts down the highway for hours. Fire season brings its own terror. The same dry winds that make the descent so unpredictable also drive wildfires across these hills. When the Grapevine burns, and it does regularly, there's no alternate route. Interstate 5 is the only game in town, and when it closes, California's north-south freight corridor grinds to a halt. Caltrans and CHP use every tool they've got: weather sensors, wind monitors, cameras, automated warning systems that feed real-time data to dispatch centers. Message boards flash warnings, traffic apps reroute vehicles. The infrastructure is impressive, but Mother Nature still calls the shots. Every storm, every fire, every fog bank reminds everyone that this highway wasn't built through the mountains, it was built at their mercy. Despite all these challenges, or maybe because of them, the Grapevine remains absolutely vital to California's economy. Over 100,000 vehicles cross this pass every day. Trucks carry produce from the Central Valley to LA and beyond. Consumer goods move north from the ports. The state's entire logistics network depends on keeping this corridor open. Caltrans treats the Grapevine accordingly. Recent rehabilitation projects replaced old pavement with high-strength concrete designed to handle the constant pounding. Slopes were reinforced. Earthquake protection was upgraded. The maintenance never stops because it can't. Technology helps now in ways earlier generations couldn't imagine. Electronic signs warn of conditions ahead. Cameras let dispatchers see problems before they escalate. Truck weigh stations catch dangerous equipment before it hits the grade. Is it better than it was? Absolutely. The Ridge route would terrify modern drivers. US 99's. Suicide lane seems insane by today's standards. Interstate 5 is safer, faster, better maintained than anything that came before. But here's what hasn't changed. The Grapevine still demands respect. The grade still tests equipment and judgment. The weather still turns without warning. And drivers who get complacent still learn hard lessons. An old trucker once told me something I've never forgotten. You can get laughed at 100 times for taking a grade too slow, but you might not get a second chance if you take it too fast. That's the Grapevine in a nutshell. It's not a place for proving anything. It's a place for getting home safe. Thousands of professional drivers clear this pass every single day without incident. They know their equipment, they respect the conditions, they take their time and arrive alive. That's the real story of the Grapevine, not the wrecks and the horror stories, but the quiet competence of professionals doing their job right. From Spanish explorers naming a canyon to modern truckers navigating one of America's busiest freight corridors, the Grapevine has been testing travelers for over 200 years. Each generation built a better road. Each generation added safety features. Each generation learned from the mistakes of those who came before. But the mountain hasn't changed. It's still steep, still unpredictable, still unforgiving of mistakes. And that's probably how it should be. Places like this remind us that for all our engineering and technology, nature still sets the limits. We can build better roads, but we can't eliminate the risks entirely. The Grapevine remains what it's always been, a vital corridor, a constant challenge, and a reminder that some hills demand respect, no matter how many times you've crossed them. We appreciate you joining us for this look at California's most demanding mountain pass. If you've got a Grapevine story of your own, drop it in the comments below. We're always active there and love hearing from drivers who know these roads firsthand. If you enjoyed this deep dive into highway history, go ahead and hit that like button. It helps us reach more folks who appreciate these stories. Share it with friends who might find it interesting. And if you like what we do here, Exploring the roads that move America, subscribe to the channel and join our caravan. Here at Beyond the Turnpike, we're always searching for history hiding in plain sight, waiting to be rediscovered. Thanks for watching, and God bless.